Hello, I'm Simon Fisherbecker. You probably know me better as Dorian Moldabar from Doctor Who, or the Fat Friar from Harry Potter. And this is Everything Geek Podcast.
Your attention, masters, mistresses. All systems functional for the Everything Geek Podcast.
Hey, it's James Arnold Taylor, the voice of Obi-Wan Kenobi and Master Plo Koon in Star Wars The Clone Wars, and you're listening to Everything Geek, the podcast.
Face it, Tiger. You just hit the jackpot with the Everything Geek Podcast.
Hello everyone, you're listening to the Everything Geek Podcast. I'm your host Joy, and joining me is co-host Al. And also joining us today is a very special guest. We have actor Tommy Walker, who is best known for playing Francis in the Daredevil series, the Harakiri soldier in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie, David Mullen in Unforgettable, the one-upper in The Game Killers, policeman Phil in Us and Them, the limo driver in Person of Interest, and a stormtrooper in The Producers.
Well.
So
Thanks,
how are you
Roy.
today, Tommy? I'm very well, thank you. It's a pleasure to have you join us on the podcast today. So getting right into the questions, Tommy, my first question for you is, how did you decide you wanted to become an
I
actor?
had no direction in high school, but I knew I wanted to do it, and eventually found my way in college. But it was really quite simple. It was growing up, believe it or not, with the Rocky franchise and seeing Rocky 1. That pretty much, to me, was to me, in my opinion, like top to bottom, my favorite movie of all time. And something about the heart of that movie and everyone's performances in that movie, it was like the most real film that I had seen. And I also, grew up in Philly, outside of Philly, and it really spoke to me there too. And then when I dissected that movie as I got a little older, understood the performances more, that was truly inspiring. So I credit Stallone, believe it or not.
Yeah, I'm sure if you ever ran into him in person, you would probably tell him
my wife
that.
met him a number of times, and I still haven't, so I'm jealous about that.
That must be the worst feeling of all time. Does she ever rub it in your face or something, or
She's like, yeah, he smiled at me again today. Like, oh, jeez. Yeah, great. Tell him he's awesome. Anyway.
Yeah, that must be really painful sometimes.
I'm very lucky to meet and work with a lot of great people in the business already, and he's still on my bucket list, I guess. But another movie is Serpico. Al Pacino in Serpico in 1973 was another one that really got me really juiced up to try and become an actor. That one was so real and so powerful. That was another one that really stands out in my mind. I just watched movies a lot as a kid, and I grew up watching them, just like almost overanalyzing them. So that was probably another one.
It's very interesting. A couple of very interesting movies that helped you get interested in becoming an actor, because they're not very common ones. Like, for us on the podcast, we've interviewed a lot of people, and like lots of them have the same movies that help them decide they want to become an actor. Like, Star Wars is almost, a frequent mention from people for just one example, and there are other obvious ones as well. Like, that is interesting. Two very interesting movies that helped you decide you wanted to become an actor, so thank you for that. Moving on to my second question, how were you cast as Francis in the Daredevil series?
I could go on and on and on about that show and what a dream come true that gig has become. But I went in last summer for a different part, a smaller part, and it didn't work out, but casting, I think, had their eye on me, and they brought me back in a couple months later. And I love telling this story. I was, I'm a comic book fan. I grew up reading comic books, and it's how I learned to read. So I really I have a special place in my heart for that business. And I went to the New York Comic Con in New York City last year, and I had auditioned for Francis, but a couple days had gone by, and it was a Friday, and I knew the Daredevil cast was coming. At least the main cast was coming to Comic Con the next day. So I went on Friday. It was the only day I had free to go, and I just went as a fan. And I just went and shopped around and checked stuff out. And the whole day was kind of on my mind, wondering something was on my mind a little bit more so for some reason about this job. I was like, I just felt like something's going on, but I couldn't quite pinpoint it in my gut. And I kept thinking about the next day. I was like, wow, it'd be really cool to see that cast, when they're all doing that. Possibly being cast as Francis, and I went there, saw that, and I went home and I put a bag of merchandise on the desk, and no sooner did I put that bag down, a minute later my agent called and told me that I was cast as Francis. So believe me, it was a very surreal day because, I'm a fan and checking stuff out, always interested in what's going on with the MCU and everything, and then all of a sudden you find out you're part of
definitely.
it.
I mean, it's very interesting as well how you said you were initially going for a smaller role and ended up with Francis, a featured supporting character in 4 episodes. It's pretty impressive. I mean, I can only imagine if you did get that smaller part, you might not have, you might not have ended up as fortunate if you got that really smaller role that you mentioned. Like, it's
Yeah. I can't say what it was because I can tell you right now it would have been 1 episode, and that person would
yeah.
have been
So you definitely lucked
killed.
out in some regard then.
Oh yeah, I'll say for sure. Everything attached to this particular job,
And
has been
it's
really
just
nice,
very
really
interesting as
cool.
well, with the whole Comic Con experience and the fact that afterwards, you've been thinking so much about Daredevil and then you got cast. It was almost like it was meant to happen in some way.
Oh, it was without a doubt the worlds colliding in every way because, like I said, comics meant so much to me. But I also, my whole life as an adult was being in New York and trying to do both stage, TV, film, be an actor, work as an actor. So those two things coming together at the timing that it did too, at this particular point in my career, it was like, so much to the little kid in me, not to mention the adult fan in me as
Very
well.
interesting. Moving on to my third question. I know that you yourself have been a fan of comics for a long time, and it was because of comics that you learned to read, as you also just said a couple of minutes ago. How excited did this make you when you found out that you were
Right.
being cast in Daredevil and were going to play a henchman for Kingpin?
It was incredible. I also, at first I had thought that I didn't know that I was kind of finishing out the season as well. That wasn't all confirmed at the time. I knew I was appearing. I didn't know how much. So just to know that I was going to go and work on the show at all, for me, it's the little things. I mean, that was enough. But it kind of sounds a little bit generic sometimes because I've done some interviews where people have asked, "Were you a Daredevil fan?" But I can wholeheartedly say yes. I already was. I already read that book quite a bit coming up, growing up as a kid. I mean, I have particular issues that I have almost memorized. You know what I mean? Like Daredevil was very prominent. I was a big fan of Daredevil growing up. So that was, all those things go through your mind when you get this information that you got to go work. It's crazy. You know what I mean? Immediately I go back to issue 171, you know what I mean? Issue 270. For some reason, issue 270 in volume 1, still teaming up with Spike stuff. It was just particularly really good. It was when John Romita Jr.'s art was like a little bit more grit around the edges and stuff. It was just cool. Anyway, I digress. I was super excited, and those kind of things run through your mind like, wow, like you get a chance to become part of what they're going to present on screen and bring this character to life again.
Yeah, definitely. But Tommy, I'm sure you can imagine you can't say that you memorize certain issues and then not actually.
Oh, well, there was a Mephisto. I don't remember if it was the beginning of or the end of the book, But there's a splash page of Mephisto that has scared me so bad as a kid, and I think that's what was so fascinating about it. But it was just a really, really cool issue. And then, of course, I also read 271 a lot, which wasn't that related to Mephisto, but it was just the greatest cover in the world. It was like a yellow cover, and he's like jumping up, straight up. It's a very Romita Jr. kind of esque thing, but it has to do with some type of. It's a little bit grittier, that story, if I recall. It's like was it Karen? Karen gets messed up really bad, or was some other blonde girl? But it's like kind of a gritty adult story. But I believe that was the Ann Nesenti run, if I'm remembering correctly. She was amazing. What was the other one? The Christmas one, 253 with Kingpin. Oh my goodness, that was such a great story. It was mostly about Matt Murdock just being like so giving and giving back to the community. Do you remember that issue?
No, unfortunately, my memory is escaping me all the time.
Really good one there, because at the end, it's when Kingpin's like, this ain't over and I'm going to get you. It's such a classic little moment, because he's not really in it very much, and it's right before they introduce Typhoid Mary in the next issue. So it's a great, Ann Nesenti was one of my favorites. I was mesmerized by her Daredevil run as a kid. It was a little bit, I think, ahead of its time.
That's a very great answer.
Just saying that, are you excited about the Spider-Man news joining Marvel? Maybe you can get your live-action Spider-Man Daredevil crossover.
I would be, I'd be really excited about that. I'm super thrilled that they worked a deal out. I know everybody wants to see him, make that cameo. I think we all know where. And it's going to be cool to see him get involved with the Avengers and stuff. I mean, everybody wants to see that. I can't wait.
Absolutely. So moving on to my fourth question, what was it like working with the cast and crew of Daredevil?
Well, my first day was episode 9, written by the brilliant Christos and Ruth Fletcher Gage. And Christos has an amazing comic book writing history. If you don't know about Christos, he writes Buffy the Vampire Slayer. He's currently writing Spider Island for Secret Wars. Incredible guy. And Ruth was just incredible. Her detail in that script. So I show up and, I'm in a room with Charlie Cox, Vincent D'Onofrio, and Toby Leonard Moore. And just those gentlemen. And it was me and those guys. And that was my first day. And Toby's, as you know, he plays Wesley. He's super, super relaxed, really, really good actor, and made me feel so comfortable. And Vincent is the same way. He warmed up to me very quickly. And when you're in a room with just those guys and you see Daredevil in his vigilante outfit and you're like, 10 feet away from him holding a gun, it's a pretty surreal moment, not to overuse that word, but it was great working with those guys. They were all so cool, and they were so passionate and focused on the work, and that helped relax me because, it was a very exciting place to be put in.
Yeah, definitely. Sure, sounds exciting. And as you said earlier, I think as well, you did mostly appear in the later episodes as well in the season, with episode 9, I think it was, you said, being your first.
Yeah. And Peter Shinkota plays Nobu, a very good friend of mine. He was doing a scene with Toby and Vincent, and then, Peter's a very humble, exciting guy and a very good actor. But he's also a fan as well, and he and I do this little grab on his shoulder, and he gives me this wrist lock in episode 9, and that was our first real interaction together. Was this action shot, right? And it was funny. He would walk up to Vincent, do a scene, come back to places, and do it again, and he would come back to me and go, "Dude, we're doing a scene with Vincent D'Onofrio," and and it was so fun because he was so real about it. And I'm going, "Yeah, I know. Isn't it cool?"
Yeah, definitely. And we actually talked to Peter on the podcast recently, just last week, the other week. It was very recent. Yeah, so I should really remember. Yeah, it was definitely recently. I actually have a list of, we're saying we did interview Peter the other weekend. As you were saying, he was very humble, very interesting to talk to. Got a lot of great details out of him, that's for sure.
He's a very detailed guy. He's got a very quick mind, Peter. He absorbs a lot of information and can spout it back very quickly. He's a very interesting guy to talk to.
Yeah, I can imagine. So moving on to my fifth question. The last we see of Francis is when he's with Vanessa about to take off in the helicopter. Do you think it's likely we could see Francis appear again in Daredevil if you blame him?
I think I think so. I without getting into too much detail or anything like that. I think that's very possible. As you know, Vanessa in that scene and everything, she kind of realizes what is going on, and she's got to get out of Dodge. So, spoilers, as Kingpin, as Wilson Fisk ends up in jail. Yeah, I certainly don't think that story's over with.
Yeah, I agree. It would be a bit crazy, especially everything that happens with Vanessa and Fisk in the episode would be really crazy if, she didn't return, and considering you were with her when she left, it would also be crazy if you didn't return,
right,
so...
by process of elimination, yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I mean, you just give me a biased point of view. Like, I want to come back, so anything to get me back.
I mean, would I? Sure, of course, absolutely.
Very interesting. So, moving on to my last question to you, Tommy. Do you have any upcoming acting roles or any other projects you would like to talk about?
Well, I have. There's a show that I did for Fox that actually wound up not getting picked up, and it went overseas, and it's on a network called 4. I don't really know what country that's in, but it is in Europe somewhere, and it's called Us and Them, with Alexis Bledel and Jason Ritter, Ashley Atkinson. Really good comedy. Michael Ian Black, Carrie Kenny, Kurt Fuller. Great cast. And I play a character named Officer Phil Buckley, and that show just started airing overseas. We had done it last summer, and that one's on right now, and I'm really happy with that show and how funny it is. And Officer Phil Buckley is quite a strange, funny police officer. So that's going on overseas right now. And I'm actually doing a lot of comic book conventions coming up next week. I'm going to be in London with Peter Shinkota himself at the London Film and Comic Con. We're doing some appearances there. And then I get to meet up with Christos and Ruth Fletcher Gage at the Long Beach Comic Con in California. September 12th and 13th, Rhode Island Comic Con, November 6th, 7th, and 8th, and then I'll be in New Jersey, November 21st and 22nd at the New Jersey Comic Expo. I'm really looking forward to going to all these, and I'm really glad that they want to have me, which was another really great, cool surprise, and another thing that, another door that's open that's really fun. I've gone to Comic Cons, never as a guest, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So would London next week actually be your first ever convention as a guest? Yeah.
July 17th through the 19th. Yeah, and I'm really glad my buddy Peter, is coming with me because he's done a few of those, having been in Fallen Skies and other really cool shows like that. So he told me, like, look out, buddy, it's going to be massive, and I believe him.
It is. I was there last year. It was insane.
Really?
Not necessarily always in the good way, but it was pretty crazy. Yeah. I did for the most part. I mean, it was Stan Lee's last ever European appearance, so that made it crazy, and, well, not the good crazy, I mean, so...
Imagine. Wow.
Yeah, it was really, huge. I mean, it was so big, they literally had to split the event into 2 buildings, or halls. Like, yeah, they pretty much gave Stan Lee his own building, if I remember correctly. Oh, no, wait, that's not true. They had one with, like, most of the... They had the main building with most of the stalls and most of the guests, and the other building, which was slightly smaller, but was, like, more of a private area. That was where they had all the comic stuff, Stan Lee, and the big stage, yeah, so... Yeah, but it's at a different venue this year, so I literally have no idea
I believe it's at
what's going to be like
the
this year.
Olympia somewhere in London there, yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
It's supposed to be big.
It's really big, yeah. I'll have to figure it out for myself, considering I've only been to London Film and Comic Con before last year, and that was in Earl's Court, but they can't use it for conventions anymore, so it'll be interesting, that's for sure. I'm just actually glad I ended up getting a B&B for the first 2 days, which is like 10-15 minutes walk from the convention center. So I could actually be among the first in line those 2 days.
Wow, that's great. You say you're going this year? Yes? No?
Yeah, I am.
Maybe I'll see you there.
I should hope so. I mean, Yeah, I'll definitely see you there next week. So thank you very much, Tommy, for answering all of my questions. Although at my co-host, I'll ask his now that he's returned.
Cool, pleasure, man. Thanks.
Yeah, sorry, my internet's been a bit upset today. I don't know why. Um, I just got a few questions, Tommy. I hope that's all right.
Of course it is, man. Fire away.
Awesome. My first question is, during your time working on the Daredevil show, what were your? Can you speak of your favorite moments on working on the show?
Oh man, I don't want to be redundant, but I think my all-time favorite moment, personally, was standing there in episode 9 for the first time, facing off. Fisk facing off with Daredevil, seeing Charlie in the vigilante suit. Like I said that earlier, but I mean, it really truly was my favorite moment because it was the first day, and it was so special and so strange to me, But another favorite moment was actually getting my face punched in by Vincent D'Onofrio in episode 12 when we find Wesley, of course, deceased, and Fisk retaliates to me because I'm the closest one, and I also let him leave. That was amazing because, as you know, the stunt team, how talented they are. We kept mixing and matching those shots where it was us and the stunt team and finding the best combination. But Vincent, has me by my shirt and I'm on my knees, and he's just, Vincent's a tall dude. He's a big man. And he's just this monster over me. I'm on my knees all bloodied up, and he's looking at me smiling. I'm like, yep, here we go again. Take 3.
Yeah, I'm sure I think that he's the perfect choice for Wilson Fisk. Don't you think?
Oh, without a doubt, I agree. He was mesmerizing to watch, and I mean, as you saw in the show, like the only time I'm really in the show was with him, and that was a true gift because I already knew who he was, of course, and saw a lot of his work. Full Metal Jacket, Men in Black, The Cell, which is an underrated performance. He's unbelievable in that movie. He is one of the greatest guys. He is so chill and so fun, but his process is really, really powerful. He's a very intense dude, and I learned a lot. So yeah, he's a great choice for Fisk. He embodied that wonderfully.
That's awesome. Yeah, speaking of process, I mean, can you tell us of how you get into character of Francis? And can you tell us a bit about him?
Well, I kind of found Francis as I went because he doesn't say a lot, but I didn't really have too much of a process. I knew what my intention was from the get-go. I knew who I worked for, which was primarily Wesley for the most part, and then eventually more directly Fisk. He's like the antithesis of he's like the complete opposite, really, of who I am. So, because I'm kind of goofy and just kind of relaxed, but that was more of a challenge because he's very stoic and I guess somewhat angry and pent up and ready to shoot at anybody he's told to shoot at. So he's more of a mercenary mentality, I think. So I had to stay very focused, really, when I was working there.
Yeah, perhaps a Francis Crossbones sort of crossover or interaction in the future at some point, hopefully.
Oh, hopefully.
Yeah. Which are your favorite films from the Marvel Cinematic Universe? And why?
Iron Man 1, 2008. That, I mean, opened the door, obviously. Marvel Studios' first attempt, everything was on the line. And they succeeded massively. They took what was a C-list character at the time and made him A-list. I have nothing but respect for the approach of that movie. It was done really, really well. Favreau nailed it. Downey was amazing. And to this day, that one's my favorite without a doubt. I love Avengers 1. I mean, I don't think there's anything about, you can't really say anything else about that one except it's like the first time the gang gets together. There's just something truly special about that. You know what I mean? And what they're doing now, which I love, is that Guardians opened the door for even more kind of comedy, along with, you know what I mean, a little bit more of a different tone. And that's why I hope Ant-Man takes on that tone. I think it kind of has to. And they're just getting smarter and better and more powerful as they go. But Iron Man for sure is my fave. Avengers would be up there. I like a lot of the sequels, though, too. I mean, I'm easy to please with the Marvel movies. I think they do a great job.
Yeah, I think also that the fact that you're a huge comic fan is quite telling because we all know that Kevin Feige is a huge comic fan as well. So, it feels like they're catering for us, which is good.
Oh, without a doubt, and I think that's one of the first. I don't know a studio who does that better. Basically, I think that they have this way, this magical way of taking a lot of great roots and bones of great story, and they get the right people involved to kind of chaperone this material and then make it kind of widespread and worldwide, but also hit the fans in the heart. And I think that it's a very tough job. It's a very difficult task that Feige has. So I tip my hat to him because I think he's doing a great job.
That is, and yeah, you also done a fantastic job on the show.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so that's all my questions. Let's pass you back to Rory.
Okay.
I'm back. Who missed me? Thanks, I think. Well, I wasn't gone for that long, actually, like 5 or 6 minutes. Oh, yeah, I did have a nice water break while I, wasn't talking, so that was nice. Yeah. So that's all of our questions to you today, Tommy. I believe it's been a pleasure talking to you on the podcast.
I had a great time doing this. Thanks, man. Anytime I get a chance to talk to anybody about the show or comics, stuff like that, this is right up my alley. So thanks.
You're very welcome, and hopefully we can talk to you again at some point.
I'd love to. Just let me know. I'll see you next week, right?
Yeah, you will. I'm looking forward to seeing you at London Film and Comic Con as well. So I'll talk to you soon and see you at London Film and Comic Con then. So I'll talk to you again soon then. Brian, thanks again for joining us.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Take care, Tony.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Right. That was a great interview, wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, he's a really cool guy, really chill. Yeah, it was really good to have him on the show.
Yeah, definitely. So are you ready to wrap up?
Yes, I am.
Okay. So time to wrap up today's show. That was our interview with actor Tommy Walker. I hope you enjoyed listening to him. Make sure to check out our podcast links. Check out our Facebook page, www.facebook.com/everythinggeekpodcast. Check out our YouTube channel, www.youtube.com/user/everythinggeekcast. Check us out on Twitter, twitter.com/everythinggeekp. Check us out on Instagram, instagram.com/official@everythinggeekpodcast. Check out our Mixcloud profile, www.mixcloud.com/everythinggeekpodcast. Email us at the below email, everythinggeekpodcast@gmail.com. Check out our companion podcast, Everything Geek Comic Cast, www.facebook.com